In the past, I played several victory point games. They were usually two-player war games that I was playing both sides, so I wanted to see how the strategy developed. And then I realized, wait a second, they also have a line of solitaire games, so I decided to try one of them. The one I picked up is Ottoman Sunset, their latest release in the line of solitaire games. It's about the Ottoman Empire during World War I in its period of decline and fall, and you will be playing the role of the empire trying to survive through the war. The game comes in a small Ziploc bag, like other victory point games. Would you see what is inside the bag, with all the components being printed on paper and cardboard? Sometimes you might wonder if the price is really appropriate for what you get. However, if you know the motto Victory Point Games, which is on their website, you know that to them, the gameplay is the thing. So you know when you're buying one of their games that what you're really paying for is the gameplay, much more than the components. Of course, if this is the case, the question is the gameplay good enough to justify the purchase? Well, today we're going to try to answer that question in regard of Ottoman Sunset. At the core of the game, you will find this deck of 48 cards. There are several ways of losing this game, but only one way to win, which is to survive all the events represented in these cards. The cards are usually divided in three sections. There will be a main event happening at the beginning of the card, and that will be a different event each turn, so will give a lot of variety during the game. You will have the identities of the fronts that are advancing towards your capital, and different fronts will be advancing every turn, so there will be a constant pressure against you. And then you have the number of actions that you will be allowed to perform. At the bottom of the card, you also have a pretty extensive historical commentary of the event portrayed in the card, which doesn't affect the game in any way, but it is an interesting history lesson. The game can be played in a random way. Then you divide the cards according to color. You start with the light blue deck, later instructed by an event, you shuffle in the yellow, and later on the gray deck. However, it's very interesting that the cards also have little numbers on them. And the numerical order of the cards follows the chronological progression of the events. So if you're playing the cards in the right order, like I have them here in this deck, you will see the entire span of World War I unfold in front of you as seen from the point of view of the Ottoman Empire. The thing that you will be worrying about most often is the advance of these fronts on the map. Each time a flag of one of these fronts comes out on a card, the front will advance of one box towards the capital. Any one of them reaches Constantinople, then the game ends immediately with your defeat. And what keeps the game interesting is the fact that these tracks don't all work in the same way. For example, the Army of Sinai advances pretty often, but has severe movement limitations in this area. So sometimes you will want to try to push them back in the desert where they are much slower. The Arabian front has the longest track of them all, but when Lawrence starts guiding them, boy, do they move fast. These two fronts, they enter the game later, but as you can see, they have very short tracks. As soon as they enter the game, they're right there, pushing their way through your gates. So that will keep the game very interesting. It will give you different challenges and different ways that you will have to deal with the fronts. So it is not by chance that the action you will be performing most often is to launch attacks against these fronts. The way you do it is you spend one of the actions granted to you by the card, you decide the front you're attacking, and you roll one die. If you roll more than the number written on the marker, you win the battle, and you move the marker back one step. If you roll the same number or less, nothing happens. The army stays there and the front is ready to advance next turn. As you can see, it's an unbelievably simple system. Whether or not it is also simplistic, I'll discuss later. For now, I can tell you that it keeps the pace of the game real fast, which is really important in a solitaire like this one. Just events keep happening. You roll, not much happened. Next card, you roll, armies are getting closer to you. It really increases the sense of entrapment and encirclement, which is important in a game of this type. But this is called World War I for a reason. In fact, you will have also to fight off-map battles in different places, in the Western Theater, in the Naval Theater, and in the Eastern Theater. The cards will instruct you when a battle of this type happens. Each battle will be represented by a counter telling you the name of the battle and with a number under it. As you can imagine, the way you fight them, you roll once. You roll more, you win. You roll less, you lose. Yet there's also the option you roll the same is a stalemate, but I'll explain what that is. Again, very simple, very immediate resolution. You will also be able actually to fight this battle to buy these resources that give you a modifier on the roll. You buy them spending some of your actions and you place them in the theater so that when a certain battle hits, you can use those modifiers. Be advised though, those modifiers are extremely expensive to buy in terms of actions, and yes, you guessed it, you buy too many of them, you're launching less attacks against those fronts that never stop pushing against you, never stop walking your direction. And in case you're wondering, why would I worry about those off-map theaters happening so far from home? This is why. Each time you win one of those battles, you will place the corresponding marker there. Each time you lose one of those battles, you will place the marker in the defeat box. And if it's a stalemate, you'll place it there. At the end of each turn, you will check the national will track, representing the will of your people to follow your government. You will add the victories and subtract the defeats. Other factors will affect that, but those victories and defeats will be definitely a major one. In this case, if no other factor affects the total, your national will track will go to -2. You keep losing those battles, means you keep losing face, your government goes to -3, then the government collapses and you lose the game immediately. As if all that wasn't trouble enough, one of the events that might happen is that the British Navy will be trying to reach Constantinople through the sea. That event is resolved using an actual minigame printed on a corner of the map. Throughout the game, you will be allowed to buy fortifications to defend your areas. Of course, those fortifications will cost you actions that you could instead be using to try to push those armies back. If the event of the British attack happens, you will place the Royal Navy there, and the British will have to go through all of these fortifications. For each of these, they will roll a die, and just like you in battle, if they roll more, they will in the battle and can just go to the next obstacle. If they roll the same or less, they take a hit. They have to take 4 hits in order to be destroyed. If they reach the end of the track and they go past the last fortification and they have one health left, they reach Constantinople and you lose the game immediately. I find Ottoman Sunset to have a very solid, very strong, very tight design. The game is fast, it is entertaining, the advancing of the armies creates a sort of countdown clock that never stops, and while that continuously, obsessively moves on, other events will be happening, battles, attacks, that will keep the game having an interesting pace, a lot of variety, and again, it's very tight. You don't have a second of respite. Of course, the random game, it's fun, because things will happen unpredictably, huge replayability, but I also I was really impressed with the historical game that has been designed very well. You might think, oh, that's going to be very predictable every time you go through the same sequence of events, and it's also going to be easy, you know what's going to happen. Well, think again. It has been really hard for me to beat the historical game, just because the armies move in a much more logical way. In the random game, you might have one army moves now, then another one, then another one. Each turn, random armies will move. Here it is designed in such a way that it does reproduce large military campaigns. When an army starts moving, it will just keep going against you. It's interesting. You will be able to plan your strategy based on that. Well, the people in Salonika seems that they have stopped actions for now, but the people in Mesopotamia are really trying to break through our lines. It will allow you to plan strategies, and it will not feel gamey at all, because it will feel that you're actually studying the strategy of the enemy. So a lot of challenges in the historical game. It will take you a long time before you can really fine-tune your skills in trying to beat this game. I managed to beat it once, and I want to try to play it again to see if I can improve my score. This is a very abstract game. I mean, one army is made of one counter with one number written on it. It doesn't get any more abstract. But does it feel abstract? Not at all. It feels actually like the type of abstraction that politicians work with. Of course, a politician doesn't go and visit all the fronts before deciding what to do in that specific battle or front. The politician receives, communicates information from the outside, and has to make decisions based on those. Here you have a similar sense. You feel like you are in this command room and you receive a telegram from your secret service telling you that they failed to trigger a coup d'etat in Persia. You receive another telegram telling you that the army has been beaten severely in Mesopotamia and they need new forces there. Then your German allies will ask you to contribute to a battle in Europe. The Secret Service comes back to you and tells you that now they spotted the British Navy trying to attack Constantinople from the sea. And you'll be looking at this map just like a politician receiving all this info, and you'll be scratching your head and thinking, how am I going to cope with all this? Of course, you'll feel overwhelmed, but in a fun way. This increasing sense of overwhelming and dread, it's part of the fun. It is a very interesting challenge. I had a lot of fun playing it. I'm planning on playing it more. And I think that when I'll be feeling like playing a solitaire, this might often end up being my choice.